Hello and welcome to another video with me, Ryan, as always. And today we're going to cover a Black Library book. Shocker, right? Actually, in this case, I actually bought it as a book and not as a audio book. The Avenging Son, a Dawn of Fire novel by Guy Haley, the first of the new 40k series, which they're hoping is going to be just as big as the Horus Heresy series, which would be actually pretty good because we don't have anything like that for the 40k timeline. This book, as in essence, is great. I'd mark it 4.5 out of 5, or dare I say, a 5 out of 5. Guy Haley kept me captivated all the way through from start to end, but more of that possibly later. But before we go any further, hit that like, subscribe, hit me a comment of what you might want to see in the future. I'm looking to actually read more books than actually just churn through them with audiobooks, but I'm starting to pick up the physical book bug, so to speak. We're going to cover some aspects in the book, and there may be mild spoilers, so you have been warned. If you don't want any potential spoilers, I'm going to try and keep it as spoiler free as possible, but that might not happen, so you have been warned. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so before we go, I'm going to read the blurb off the back so it gives you a little bit of context on what the book is about. So, this is Era Indomitus. A great darkness has befallen the galaxy, and the armies of chaos are rampant. To survive, humanity must retaliate and take back what they have lost. By the will of the reborn primarch Roboute Guilliman is the Indomitus Crusade launched, a military undertaking that eclipses all others in known history. From the Throneworld of Terra does the Avenging Son hurl his fleets, their mission the very salvation of mankind. As fleets in their thousands burns through the cold void, the attention of Fleetmistress VanLeskus turns to the Machorta Sound, I'm going to butcher that later, a region under attack by the dreaded slaughter host of the Dark Gods. The success of the Indomitus Crusade will be determined by this conflict and the desperate mission of Battlegroup Saint Aster, led by the Space Marine Lieutenant Messinius. Even then, it is but the prelude to the forthcoming bloodshed. For the 41st millennium, there is only war. So, by that, you get the impression that it's business as usual for 40k. So, this book, as I probably stated earlier, it roughly rocks up about 500 odd pages. Now, there are a few things in this book that is pretty, I'm going to say unique. I've not come across it before, but hey, I'm quite new to physical books, so let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. So, there is a map a few pages in that actually shows you a few directions that the fleet path for the multiple fleets, just to help you keep track and also to give context, because we are covering the galaxy in its entirety. So there is that, which is quite nice, but it's kind of black and white in this. I'm going to guess that in the swanky special edition version that it's in full colour, but you know, who knows? Let me know in the comments below. There is actually a character list. It's roughly about 5 pages long, and it tells you who's who and where they are, whether they're on Fleet Primus, Fleet Tertius, what if they belong to a strike group, the different Adeptus Mechanicus Explorer teams that are there. This is a very large, character list or roster or cast, that's the word I was looking for, a very large cast of individuals for the 40k, and apart from a small few, they're all original. Roboute Guilliman, Alpha Primus, Ball, Quivo 87, they're returning characters, and we've seen them in other things before, but they're actually a majority of new characters in this, which is great, because who doesn't want new characters, especially Primaris Marines? So, what is the actual story of the Avenging Son? Well, this actually rewinds the clock from Chris Wright's Dark Imperium, and actually takes us back to the beginning of the Indomitus Crusade. So the book starts, more or less, given the different strands of the narratives through it, the book starts in a hole with Guilliman's return to Terra, and it's told through different perspectives, through his and other characters, to give you like a variation on the hierarchy and what it actually pertains to somebody that is just a citizen of the Imperium and actually seeing a demigod, a Primarch, come back to Terra, because this is like, Hercules coming to the people in Greece from Mount Olympus. So the big things that we all know happen. Guilliman comes back to Terra, he goes to speak to his father, he spends a couple of days and then tells nobody about the conversation that they've had. And then he starts off by correcting a lot of mistakes that have happened over the 10,000 plus years. It's actually 12,000, but who's counting at this point? The Lords of Terra, he kicks some of them out and then he replaces them with some people that are more amenable. And then he goes and sets about creating a new crusade. And how he does this is by gathering up all the resources and using people's pride and hubris within the Imperium, especially the High Lords, to actually gather all this force together. But what people don't really understand at that point is that he's going to initiate the Primaris project. So Cole comes into the forefront. And then we get a meeting between Guilliman and Cole, and the first demonstration of the Primaris Marines in front of him in an entourage. Now, this may seem a little bit simplistic if you've already read this book, but it is actually told through different points of view. So that particular scenario is actually through the eyes of a normal a firstborn Marine who actually sees the Primaris Marines for the first time, and his reaction to Guilliman. And actually this point with Guilliman, you see a more three-dimensional character that you're actually used to from the Ultramarines. This book, as well as the Knights of Macragge recently, for me, has made the Ultramarines very three-dimensional and more entertaining, apart from just space Romans. Veterian Messinius, Captain 10th Company, White Consuls, Lord Lieutenant of Fleet Tertius, Sons of Guilliman. Now, if you look at the front cover, he's the guy in the white at the bottom of the page, and he's a firstborn Marine. And a lot of the book is told through his perspective. So he does cover the story of the White Consuls being more or less wiped out, and how he feels about that, and especially when the Primaris come into the forefront, you see from his initial perspective on what it means for the firstborn Marines that these bigger, faster, stronger, better sons of the Emperor are now in the picture. Which is very interesting, because in the last couple of years since 8th edition and the whole thing to do with Primaris Marines coming to the forefront, that we haven't really had a lot of in-depth discussion about Primaris Marines and what it means for the firstborn. We've had some throwaway comments here and there, and I guess from Games Workshop perspective, they're not trying to hark on this sort of second civil war between the two types of Marines. It's more of, there's always going to be a place for firstborn Marines, but Primaris Marines are all shiny and new, and that's where the excitement is right now, which is great, because I agree. Arius Ferrin. So he's the Primaris Marine on the front cover of the book, and from his perspective throughout the book, you see glimpses of what it was like for him being awoken and refrozen, put into stasis throughout the 10,000 years of the Primaris project, as well as when he awakens, what the process actually entails. And they're kind of like dogs to a certain extent. They imprint on someone when they first awaken, which is, I found it a little bit odd, but thinking about it afterwards, it does actually make sense that Cole would put this into effect, this sort of like psycho conditioning, so there wouldn't actually be some sort of civil war, so we don't actually get a second heresy sort of situation. And as the book goes on, from Ferrin's perspective, we see what it's like for a Primaris Marine that's been awoken on Mars, and then their sort of first foray into combat. They realise that their subconscious is so quick, and their imprinting of war doctrine, dogma, is so deep in their DNA and psycho conditioning that their subconscious moves their body for them more quickly than what their actual consciousness can do. So he's finding this odd sensation where his body's doing the movement before his brain can actually think of the appropriate outcome or strategy to take, which I found was really cool. And especially as, you know, they fight certain things as they go through the book, you get these sort of these sort of discussions and dialogue between the Primarch Marines and the Firstborn on what chaos and religious dogma is, and how it's so different between the Imperium of man as a citizen as well as a Marine, and what it reflects to Guilliman. There's a lot of angles that this book takes, and Guy Haley does a great job. So Eluz Agathe, now I'm probably going to butcher that, but I probably have, is the female character on the front cover, and she's Commodore and Group Master of Strike Group or Battlegroup Saint Aster, and that's the second narrative within the book that kind of dips in and out, and you follow her, and she's a great character. She stands on her own, she knows her stuff, and the space combat, which personally I don't really have a sort of, I don't like it or dislike it, I just find it a bit meh. But in this case, I actually enjoyed those chapters that cover her sort of combat with which fleets that she's going to basically attack or defend. I'm trying to be spoiler free as possible. I do apologise for this being super vague. So they're all the main characters, and I'll leave you to pick up the book to experience it as it should be by reading it, and also to support the Games Workshop brand so we can actually have more content like this come out in the future. Guy Haley does a good job of balancing between new readers and, you know, already people that are into the hobby and into the 40k universe. Now, however, it also at times could possibly come across as spoon-feeding information very heavy-handedly, so you're able to grasp the larger concepts, who the Emperor is, what a Primarch is, what a Marine is, etc. However, I do think that Guy Haley was the best person to start this series off. I do rate him as a writer. I have read a lot of his stuff in the past, and it's just good. So I think, if anything, that's the only really criticism that I've actually got with this book. So where does this leave us for the wider narrative of the 40k universe? Well, we already know what's going to happen after the Indomitus Crusade, because we've had a plethora of stories and novels that have happened post Indomitus Crusade, and we know that with the new 9th edition that the Necrons are either going to be part of this Dawn of Fire series, or that they come after the Indomitus Crusade, because the Dark Imperium and Dark Imperium Plague War books have no mention of the Necrons at all, but we're supposed to be geared for them being the main bad guys in this new 9th edition setting. So it's going to be very interesting to see what actually happens between the Marines and the Necrons, and what actually happens, because they're nowhere to be found in the Dark Imperium, and apparently there still is a third book for that series to come. So let's see what happens. So there we have it. That's my review of the Avenging Son novel, and if I was going to give it a number, I would give it a 4.5 or a 5 out of 5, because it's a solid book. There's a lot of characters, there's a lot going on, it keeps you gripped, and it just sets up for the next in the series, and I can't wait for it to come out, or when it gets revealed. At this point of recording, nothing's known about the next entry. However, if you do want to support this channel, hit that subscribe button, hit a like, give me a comment, let me know what you think, give me some criticism, what do you want me to read next, all that lovely YouTubey stuff, or Facebook, or however you got to this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care of yourself, play more games, and stay safe.